Welcome to Module 5. My name is Margaret Flo McEwen and I'm Head of Governance here at Explore. I'm responsible for handling incidents and legal matters which affect our customers on their holidays. It's never going to be possible to totally prevent accidents from occurring on tours, and it's often the case that if a customer is injured, they will consider somebody to blame for what's happened, and they will therefore want to be compensated as well. This module will give you the guidance to take you through procedures and support that you should put in place to help you if this ever happens to you. The first document I will talk to you about is the incident report form. This is one of the most important documents to have if ever there is an accident on your trips. I strongly recommend that you make the completion of an incident report an essential part of your health and safety procedures if something happens on tour, or even if there is just a near miss itself. This will give you a strong foundation of facts to rely on. The form should be completed by your tour guide, who should also sign and date it to confirm that it is factually correct. If a customer is injured and tries to claim compensation, you will need to explain what has happened. Therefore, your tour guide's recollection might be very different to that of the injured customer's recollection themselves. So an incident report form will provide you with clear and accurate information which was recorded on the day the incident happened itself. Incident reports are also a very useful tool to enable you to monitor what is happening or almost happening over a period of time on your holidays. At the end of the season, you can look back and review the details of any incidents or near misses, and you can decide if you're happy with the action that was taken at the time. As a result, you may want to change how you do things on the ground to improve things for the future if you're not happy with how things were done on previous occasions. If you are able to show that you have a good, reliable reporting system in place, this will present you as being responsible and it will support your reputation, which is ultimately what you want to do. So the question is, how good is your memory? If a customer decides to sue for compensation, this might not actually happen straight away, and it could be quite some time after the event before you even become aware that this is actually going to be their intention. Legally, a customer has a very long period of time before they have to legally submit a claim. If we look at the numbers, it's actually 3 years from the date of an accident for an adult, but if you're a child, it's 3 years from the date of their 18th birthday, which could be decades away. I was actually involved in a claim which didn't come through to me until about 2 years after the accident occurred itself, and it's incredibly difficult to pull together all the facts with any degree of certainty after such a long period of time. Without an incident report, it would be very difficult to rely on the memory of your guide, assuming of course your guide was still in contact with you after all that period of time, because they might not even still be working for you, and it might not be possible to speak to them about the accident. So if you do have a chance of successfully defending a claim, you will need clear evidence to support your position. The courts will expect you to produce a factual account of what happened and what action was taken at the time. Because of this then, the sooner the incident report is written, the clearer and the most accurate the information will be. Make it an essential part of your incident handling procedures that your guide writes a report immediately, and at the very latest it should be the same day if they are too busy handling the incident itself to write it there and then. Get them to send it to you straight away, ideally within 24 hours and preferably electronically. This will give you the chance to read it carefully at the earliest opportunity. When you do first read that report, ask yourself, are the details clear? Do you need to ask for clarification of any of the facts? Would it be helpful to ask for photographs to be taken of the accident scene? Maybe photographs of the vehicles that were involved, or even a hotel room if that's where the problem occurred. If there was any equipment involved that was being used, maybe take photographs of that too. Sketch maps can also be incredibly helpful to refer to at a later date. If you don't ask for photographs straight away, this could lead to vital evidence being lost once the accident scene returns to normal. So do give this priority consideration and make sure that the photos are taken as soon as possible. When you are satisfied that you have enough information, that you're absolutely clear of all the facts, safely store the documentation on file in case you need to refer to it at a later date, because at that stage you may or may not know whether a claim is likely to happen. If your guides are trained to get into the habit of completing an incident report form for every incident and also for every near miss, you'll soon build up a good understanding of the vulnerable areas of your operation. You will see where customers are most likely to be at risk, and you can then consider introducing additional measures to protect them. For example, the incidence of pickpocketing on a metro system is a really good example of something which can be recorded and might actually seem unimportant at first in isolation. But if at the end of the season you look back on all of your incident reports, you review things, and it shows to you that lots and lots of customers have been similarly affected over a period of time, you'll probably want to introduce additional safety measures to reduce the risk and hopefully prevent other customers from being affected in the same way. This may be done by getting your guide to give a stronger safety briefing and a warning to customers to keep their belongings protected or out of sight, maybe to tell them not to carry their valuables at all when they're on the metro. Perhaps instead you might look at something operationally to avoid using that particular metro station, or if it's particularly important, you might consider not using the metro at all. Or doing another mode of transport where there isn't the same level of pickpocket crime. Once measures have been put in place for a while, review them, look back, see what's happening now, compare to the problems that existed earlier in the season, and see that the risk has now been reduced. If it has, that's brilliant. But if the same problems are still reoccurring, you really ought to review things again to see whether there's anything else you can do on top to prevent the problems from happening. If a customer is injured and then does decide someone's to blame and that they should be compensated for what's happened, they will go through a legal process. This will carefully consider the facts, and the courts will then decide whether somebody is actually to blame for the accident or whether it couldn't have been avoided. If your incident report information suggests that there was a problem, then it's actually better to know about this as soon as possible so that the legal process can be managed quickly and without incurring high legal costs in an attempt to defend a claim where you actually have no chance of succeeding. The report must be 100% factually correct. No guessing, no surmising what might have happened. The report must be based on factual information and not the opinion of a guide or anybody else that might have seen what's happened. Ensure your leaders realise this and that they understand the importance of getting that form right. If they understand what the form will actually be used for, and more importantly the consequences of filling it in incorrectly, then it will help them to actually get it right. Remember, the form is a legally recognised document, so it must be signed and dated by the author. And don't forget, ask for more information or clarification of facts if you really don't understand what you're reading there and then. The sooner you do this, the better the chance of getting accurate information recorded. So, if that legal claim arrives on your desk, do you actually have a strategy and a process in place to deal with the legal action which is being brought against you? How will you know if that legal claim is actually legitimate? Do you understand whether or not you're likely to be found liable, and what evidence you will need to produce to try to defend your position in the claim? Do you understand the legal process and what you will need to do if you are sued? And if the claimant is successful and is awarded compensation, can you actually afford to pay the sums involved? To be honest, it's unlikely you'll be able to answer yes to all of these questions. Therefore, you will need professional expertise to support you through this legal process. This is actually why public liability insurance is so important to you, and it should really be a key action point for you to consider. Talk to insurance brokers in your country, seek their advice, ask them if insurance is available for you to purchase, and then ask them to quote for a policy to cover the kind of operating procedures and circumstances that you're working in. I want to briefly touch upon the costs which can be incurred if there is a legal claim, because I think it's really important for you to understand we're talking about huge sums of money potentially here. As you can see, the costs can be really significant, so it's important to factor this into your business model. And if insurance is available to purchase in your country, I strongly recommend you talk to a provider who sells these insurance policies to look at a policy to cover your operation. You can see legal advice can be potentially €200 an hour, and if you are defending a claim, it's not unusual to spend in the region of about €200,000 to do so. And then when it actually comes to client legal costs, if they are successful in finding you negligent, you'd be responsible for paying those costs as well. Compensation could be anything. I've been involved in claims personally which have run into millions of euros, and this is the kind of exposure financially that a company really struggles with unless they have insurance protection in place which will manage this whole process for them. I can't stress importantly how significant it is to get this point right. The next document I think it's really important for you to focus on are your contracts. So where you are arranging services for an extended service provider to be involved in your tour operating processes, ask yourself if there's a written agreement in place. There should be, and what this should include is really clear information setting out exactly what services you are expecting them to provide. You should include there as well how much the financial aspects of all of this are, how much are you being charged for these services, and then in terms of the obligation that that service provider has to provide the services, you should set out very clearly the quality and safety standards that you expect to be carried out. Where there is local legislation in place, you should have an expectation that they will comply to this, and that they will also comply to standard operating procedures which have been discussed in the previous module too. If there's a situation arising where services have to be cancelled, your contract should very clearly set out what will happen in that situation. And if your extended service provider is unable to provide the services to a satisfactory standard, which results in them breaching the contract, you should include somewhere the right to compensation and a recovery of any funds which you incur as a result of their breach. We've talked previously about legal claims, and we've talked about customers who may sue you for injury claims. If that extended service provider was actually involved in the process which resulted in that accident, you will want to be able to involve them in any legal claims too. And therefore, in that contract, you should have some wording which allows you to bring them into that claim and for you to claim back from them any legal fees and compensation which you incur as a result. This is technically known as subrogation. So to summarise, we've talked very briefly about the contents of a contract. Really, the purpose of a contract is to protect you, but also all parties involved, and for everybody to clearly understand their legal obligations that they've signed up to. In the event of a legal claim, that contract is going to be in place to determine where the responsibility lies for the accident itself. The contract is also the foundation for setting expectations as to the services that will be provided and the standard to which they will be carried out. With the contract in place, setting out what exactly has been agreed, this will greatly assist you in delivering a successful and positive holiday experience for your clients. And in case something does go wrong, your contract should also contain a clause to enable you and your insurers to reclaim the compensation and any costs incurred, so financially you will be protected by this contract as well. It's a very important document to have in place, and wherever you are reaching out to a third-party supplier to get them involved in your operations, you should have a contract in place as well. This brings us to the end of Module 5, and I thank you very much for your attention. I do hope you found it interesting and thought-provoking. To summarise then, it's all about the documentation after the event. This might not be immediately after something's happened, but could be a few weeks, months, or even years after the event. Just make sure you know where everything is. Make sure you've collected as much vital information at the time that you possibly could, and that you absolutely understand what's happened. Make sure you know where you can turn to get advice and financial support through your insurers, who will help you through the legal process. And make sure that you have a good, solid contract with your suppliers, which clearly sets out their legal obligation to you and yours to them too. And I assure you, if you've got insurance in place, you have good, robust contracts in place, and you record every event that happens, be it an actual incident or even just a near miss, I promise you, you'll be in the best position possible to protect your reputation and give your customers a very positive and safe holiday experience. Thank you very much indeed from me, Margaret Flo McEwen. Bye-bye.